Hi, Texas voters. Welcome to Part 4 of the 17 Texas state constitutional amendments up for our vote this November. If this is the first video you're seeing, no worries. I've already created a series where the first 3 videos are already up for you to watch on the first 3 propositions. So what we do here is I read you the proposition language, what you'll see when you go to the ballot box to go vote, and then we'll go over the overview, and then after that I'll share with you more information that I found from other sources. So far, a majority of these have to do with money and creating amendments to the Constitution that would create funds for these that would limit the ability to question them or litigate them in the future. Once again, I want to thank everyone who's taking a part in the conversation in the previous videos. Your engagement means more than me even making the videos, because that means that more people are able to see this and maybe have motivation to engage themselves, and maybe this is giving them the starting point to go do more research on their own before coming to their own decision. It's also showing me just how much Texans care and just how much they've felt left out of the process. So again, thank you. Alright, let's get it. Texas Proposition 4. Allocate portion of sales tax revenue to water fund amendment. A yes vote supports amending the state constitution to authorize the state legislature to allocate the first $1 billion per fiscal year of sales tax revenue after it exceeds $46.5 billion to the state water fund, and authorize the state legislature by a 2/3 vote to adjust the amount allocated. A no vote opposes amending the state constitution to authorize the state legislature to allocate the first $1 billion per fiscal year of sales tax revenue after it exceeds $46.5 billion to the state water fund, and authorize the state legislature by a 2/3 vote to adjust the amount allocated. Now for the overview. What would Proposition 4 do? Proposition 4 would amend the Texas Constitution to authorize the Texas State Legislature to require the comptroller to annually allocate the first $1 billion in net sales tax revenue after revenue exceeds $46.5 billion, so that wouldn't kick in until after they've already collected the first $46.5 billion, to the Texas State Water Fund. The comptroller's authority to allocate the first $1 billion would expire August 31st, 2047. So 20 years from when this would take effect. So this would be in place for 20 years. The allocation would be administered in a separate account in the fund, and the amendment would prohibit the use of the funds unless an appropriation law is passed. The amendment would also prohibit the state legislature from changing the law that requires the allocation for the first 10 years. If a state of disaster is declared, the allocation may be suspended through either the regular budget process or a concurrent resolution approved by a majority of state legislators. Proposition 4 would prohibit the transfer of sales tax revenue allocated to the Texas Water Fund to the new water supply for Texas Fund for financing groundwater infrastructure projects. The amendment would take effect on September 1st, 2027. So if there were groundwater infrastructure projects by the new water supply for Texas Fund, they would not receive any funding from the Texas Water Fund. Okay, so what is the Texas Water Fund? The Texas Water Fund is a special fund in the state treasury outside of the general fund that was established in the Texas Constitution with approval of Proposition 6 in 2023. TWF is administered by the Texas Water Development Board. The WDB oversees state programs related to the conservation and development of water resources in Texas. Money in the fund can only be transferred to the Water Assistance Fund, the New Supply Fund, the Water Implementation Fund, the State Water Implementation Revenue Fund for Texas, the Financial Assistance for Water Pollution Control, Rural Water Assistance Fund, the State Water Account, the Financial Assistance Account, and the State Participation Account. Only. That's a whole list. Distributions to water infrastructure projects will prioritize projects in rural political subdivisions or municipalities with a population of less than 150,000. This extra info is from environmentamerica.org. It was written after this was passed in the legislative branch to become a constitutional amendment. The article title is "Legislator Approves $20 billion for Water Infrastructure. Is Texas Finally Taking Water Seriously?" Proposition 4 promises big gains for conservation and supply, if spent wisely. With a booming population and water-guzzling industries like petrochemical plants and data centers expanding across the state, demand for water in Texas is rising fast. At the same time, our water supplies are becoming more uncertain. Longer, more intense droughts, worsened by climate change, are taking a toll. Just last month, the Edwards Aquifer hit a record low, triggering Stage 5 restrictions that slash water pumping by 44%. The Texas State Water Plan estimates water demand will rise by 9% by 2050, while the water available during a drought could drop by 18%. That's why the legislature's recent pass of Senate Bill 7, which could funnel more than $20 billion into water infrastructure through 2047, is a big and mostly welcome development. Where will all this water go? According to the State Water Plan, municipal use will drive the largest increase in demand. Over the next 50 years, the state's population is expected to grow by 21.8 million people, with an additional 10 billion gallons of water needed annually to meet their needs. Half of that potable water is expected to be used for things like drinking and showering, while the other half of that water is expected to go towards landscaping lawns and golf courses in those municipal areas. One of the other major users of the water supply is manufacturing, with industries expected to need an extra 200,000 acre-feet by 2030, equivalent to 500 billion bottles of water. Some of that is already creating tension. Plans to divert 31 billion gallons per year from the Lavaca River for petrochemical production could threaten aquatic species and fisheries. The new Water Supply for Texas Fund, which is the one that would not be eligible to receive funding from the Texas Water Fund, already has a few proposals, including desalination. Sorry if I'm saying that word wrong. Never seen it before. Including costly, energy-intensive ocean desal, treatment of oil and gas wastewater, water acquisition from other states, and aquifer storage and recovery. This article states that some of these strategies, like ASR, which is the aquifer storage and recovery, are promising. Others, like ocean desalination and long-distance pipelines, raise serious environmental red flags. Senate Bill 7 was passed. It got the signatures, got everything they needed. It will actually take effect September 1st, so it is separate than this amendment. But it increased new investments to the new Water Supply Fund, and it also expanded the definition of new water supply to include water reuse projects. Now that funding can also be used for conservation and resilience efforts such as fixing leaky pipes, supporting flood infrastructure, funding the Economically Distressed Areas program, investing in agricultural conservation, expanding water reuse, and funding for wastewater infrastructure. It then briefly talks about needed projects in Houston and then successful projects implemented in Austin. Then it goes on. What to watch? Problematic strategies still on the table. Despite the progress, there's reason for caution. Some strategies included in the new Water Supply Fund, like ocean desal, treated oil and gas wastewater injection, and a statewide pipeline grid, could be environmentally damaging or financially wasteful. And while aquifer storage and recovery is a great tool, the legislature nearly passed a bill this session to block Austin from developing an ASR project in Bastrop County, raising questions about how seriously the state supports it. The bottom line? This is a huge investment in Texas's water future. While it's not perfect and some proposals could cause harm, the changes to SB 7 significantly improve the outlook. More money is now on the table for conservation, efficiency, and resilience, not just costly supply-side projects. Whether this moment becomes a turning point or a missed opportunity will depend on how the Texas Water Development Board allocates funds, whether communities have the support they need to access these dollars, and whether we, the public, push for smart, sustainable choices. Needless to say, water and water supply are extremely crucial and critical matters that are requiring our attention, and yes, our money too. That's not the question we're answering here. The question is do we trust them enough that for the next 20 years they would have a constitutionally protected fund in order to tackle these problems? Do we trust them enough to spend this money wisely? Do we trust them enough to actually put this towards the communities and address the problems that we're currently having and future problems that we could potentially face? I apologize for the length of some of these videos. Some of these are just going to require more context, and honestly, this is still just surface level stuff. Just like the previous videos, I'd love to hear from you. So if you have questions, comments, or want more details, leave it in the comments section. Let's keep this dialogue up, yeah?